All right. Good afternoon. My name is Navtej here, and I'm part of the electrical engineering discipline here at BCIT. And I have a question for you. Can you tell me what is the single largest source of energy that we currently use? Can anybody tell me that? Well, it's fossil fuels. So that's coal, oil, and natural gas. Now these are dirty fuels. They're polluting fuels. Don't worry, I'm not going to go all David Suzuki on you, but let's just say they're not the best for us. We're kind of running out of them. We live in the 21st century, so it's time we sought a 21st century solution to our energy needs. A solution that can provide us energy which is clean, which is sustainable, and above all, safe for you, me, and our planet. The technology I'm about to share with you today can do just that. It's called space-based solar power. It's the holy grail of renewable energy. For what is more renewable, more sustainable than the energy we get from our very own sun? It truly is the energy of the future. So before I continue, let me give you a quick outline of what I'll be covering in this presentation. Of course, I'll tell you what is space-based solar power, the huge potential it holds, some common safety concerns and misconceptions that have arisen around it and which you might have also. And we'll close out on what's being done to make it a reality today. So what is space-based solar power? Well, it's the concept of using orbiting satellites in a geostationary orbit 36,000 kilometers high, which surprisingly have solar panels on them, which harness the power of the sun, and then they transmit that energy down to the Earth via microwaves safely and precisely, where a receiving station which is made out of a wire mesh of diodes, much like the one you're seeing right here, which converts those microwaves into usable base load energy, which then we can use to power our phones, our cars, our homes, our cities, our lives, whether it be day or night. So that's what space-based solar power is. Let's talk about the potential it holds. And the first question I often get is, why? Why should we go to space? We already have solar panels down here on the Earth. Well, we put these solar panels on the ground, put them on rooftops, and we build these huge solar arrays with them. And every day, the sun rises, and these solar panels sort of harness whatever energy they can before it sets again. And this day-night cycle ensures intermittency. And what about when it's raining or cloudy like it is here in Vancouver? Then they're not generating any electricity at all. With space-based solar power, we don't really have any of these problems. Because we're way high up in a geostationary orbit, we're able to generate electricity all day, every day, and we're able to transmit this energy anywhere on the globe on demand. Another big advantage of space-based solar power is land use. Here's a map of the lower mainland, and here is an overlay of how large a 1 gigawatt non-intermittent solar farm would be. That is a huge area. And now here's an overlay of how large a receiving station for a 1 gigawatt solar power satellite would be. That is a fraction of the size. We can either have something like this, so kilometer after a kilometer of solar panels, or we can have something more similar to this. Since the receiving station is literally just a wire mesh of diodes, we can either have it laying on the ground or we can have it raised above to reduce the impact on the vegetation below. Compare that with a smog-spewing coal plant or a nuclear power plant, and I know which one I would want in my backyard. And of course, there's economic benefits to space-based solar power. Just think of the tens of thousands of jobs which can be generated by funding this technology. And I could keep go on for another hour, but let's shift gears a little bit and talk about a concern which often arises whenever you talk about this technology, which is safety. Now, at the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned that microwaves are used to transmit energy from the satellites to the Earth, which may have raised an eyebrow or two with you, but it need not. If a bird, let's say, were to come into contact with these microwaves, it is not going to end up being fried chicken. And that's for two very good reasons. Number one, that's an eagle, and two, chickens don't fly. But all jokes aside, the microwaves are really harmless to animals and human beings. In fact, they're only 1/4 the intensity of normal midday sunlight. And the frequencies being proposed are in the 2 gigahertz to 10 gigahertz range, frequencies we already use for space communication and for cellular networks down here on the Earth. And in no way can this be weaponized. No less you could weaponize a broadcast of CNN. And in fact, the Pentagon did a study on space-based solar power, and they did this study over the open internet to ensure people that they were trying to find ways to avert war rather than create some clandestine weapon system which would fry people left, right, and center. And the result of this study? Yes, space-based solar power is possible, and yes, we should be doing it. So why hasn't anybody done it? Well, in the altered words of the famous pop star Jessie J, it's all about the money. Or to be more precise, economics, which never really have been on the side of space-based solar power. The costs associated with building this satellite and then putting it into orbit have been truly astronomical. But with time, those costs have come down, and there's been a lot of work that's been done and is being done to make it a reality, and I want to touch upon some of that. So as I've mentioned before, there's been a number of studies done on this topic by NASA and the Pentagon, and in 2008, an experiment was done where a former NASA executive, John C. Mankins, generated electricity on a mountaintop in Maui, and he transmitted that energy 148 kilometers to a mountaintop in Hawaii, thus confirming that wireless power transmission works and it does not turn birds into fried chicken. And that distance is very similar to what we needed for a low Earth orbit demonstration satellite. The Japanese Space Agency, they're looking to invest over $20 billion, that's with a capital B, into space-based solar power because they recognize that they no longer rely on nuclear power as a pillar of their energy policy, and they're looking towards space-based solar power becoming one. India, China have a lot of interest in space-based solar power. There's companies in Europe and, of course, here in North America, which are doing a lot of work into making space-based solar power reality. Now, the take-home message from my presentation today really is that space-based solar power is viable. And in fact, it's safe, it's sustainable, and it can provide us unlimited energy. There's an ancient Chinese proverb. It states that we dig the well before we are thirsty. Likewise, we must seek a solution to our energy needs before we either run out of fossil fuels, or more likely, we pollute our planet to the point where it is no longer habitable for millions of human beings and potentially billions of other living organisms. We have always defined ourselves by our ability to overcome the impossible. This is one obstacle, one hurdle that we can overcome. And the solution is space-based solar power, the energy of the future. Thank you for listening.